Well, I don't think I need to say one. We've had a good start to the day, and it's only going to get better. The way the day has been designed is actually a lot of the discussions that happened in the first panel and then moving to the government side is going to continue now in the next couple of panels. So a lot of the questions you may have had for the other panelists, we hopefully will get them answered through the day. So with that, without further ado, the next session we will be having is on innovative approaches to normalizing menstruation. This looks like innovative approaches from storytelling, sports, etc. And for us to be able to do that effectively, we have the privilege of having someone moderate this panel who knows all about this. So I would like to invite Sonali Khan from Breakthrough to chair the next session for the panelists.
So good morning, everyone, and I'd love to invite my co-panelists, Madhumita Das, Bharathy, Tahiliani, Nirmala, Nair, Urmila, Chanam, and Lipi, Mehta to join me on stage. Can I go that side? Feel free. Well, Lipi's walked up next, and she's the assistant editor of growth at Youth Ki Awaaz. She's deeply engaged in I'm Not Down, YK's campaign to spread awareness about menstrual hygiene and urge for affordable sanitary products. So we have Nirmala. I heard her videos going absolutely viral and taking the social media by storm. So thanks, Nirmala, for joining us. Is a communication and designer and filmmaker, using her skills to inform and shape Wash United's work in India on content development campaigns and behavior change communication using innovative media platforms. Well, please feel free. Madhumita is here next. Dr. Das, Director Programs and Innovation at CREA, is a passionate advocate for issues related to adolescent SRHR, men and masculinity, with experience across India, South Africa, Bangladesh, and Nepal. Thanks, Madhumita, for joining us. And last but not the least, we have Urmila Chanam, a journalist from the Northeast, is a menstrual hygiene management activist, global campaigner of women's right to dignity and global health. So thank you, all of you, for joining us. And before the show gets onto the road, I have been asked to conduct a quick poll. So everybody needs to pick up their polling devices. There are going to be 3 questions, and you'll be given 15 seconds to answer. Menstrual hygiene management is largely a product and infrastructure-related issue.
Let's put the music. It's very ideal.
Okay. Okay, so we disagree. Thank you. Okay, so the next question is, MHH programs that prioritize only hygiene promotion can ensure better quality of life of women and girls. Okay, so sort of, well, we disagree again, so that's amazing. The last question now, research priorities for normalizing menstruation should focus on, therefore, 4 quick points. If there's problem reading, I'll just run them up. Impact of MHH programs on self-esteem and self-efficacy of girls and women. Menstrual hygiene needs and challenges of girls and women with disabilities. Role of influencers on normalizing menstruation, changing perception of men and boys towards menstruation, and impact on menstrual hygiene management practices. So why am I not surprised? Well, so with we'll sort of move ahead with some of the reflections in the room. When at Breakthrough we were going to try and break down the taboo and myths around menstruation, we came up with several ideas. And then we did the simplest thing. We took the men that work with us, put them together and did a Facebook Live and asked them about when they were growing up, what did this whole thing mean to them? And some of my colleagues were 48-year-olds, some of them were like 22. And it was really interesting to hear from different generations on that live as to what was their experience of menstruation among their, female relatives, among now their daughters. And that really was an eye-opener that sometimes we are excluding people from this conversation. I'm really happy to see a lot of men in this room. And given that there is a great push on sort of involving men, I'll turn to Madhumita first. Madhumita, given your work around sexual and reproductive health rights, even some of this was largely something that was so associated with women and girls. There's very little conversation around men's health, even involvement of men. And then something like menstruation, periods, definitely not. So what has been your experience of breaking just this binary about talking about menstruation?
Okay, the first thing that I really wanted to put, because on this platform means we are talking so much about menstruation. I really want to little bit disturb this platform where we are talking menstruation. Let's talk menstruation in a larger picture, including sexuality and sexual and reproductive health. We keep on talking sexual and reproductive health, but ultimately we just dot on menstruation and nothing else. Which means that we have just a issue of menstruation and we don't have any other sexual health issues. So I would really love to have SRHR as a broader terminology rather than just on menstruation. With men and boys, I think Sonali, the issue of what and how we do it is something that we really need to reflect back, because there are a couple of, I think, work being done with men and boys on SRHR issue, and also talking about menstruation. But again, we just come back to the platform where we highlight the work around, all right, the way you grow up, some changes happen in you, and the girls, there are also some changes, and menstruation is one of them, and that's it. It's not that. I think that those information are already there. We have to really go beyond that. We have to really bring the angle of sexuality and how menstruation is part of that, but not only a part of it, right? And with men and boys, it's really, one way of doing, and the way we are doing the challenges is they feel that all right, so we also have some trouble in our life when we grow up. Girls also have some trouble in their life, they grow up, then it's okay, we need not have to bother about it. I think that's a bigger challenge, and that is one piece that we really need to break.
I'll just push you a little more, Madhumita, on this conversation piece. I remember growing up, I still remember someone telling me this, you don't have to tell boys anything about menstruation. They already know everything. They know more than you do. I said more than I do, and I really thought about it, because they don't menstruate. Probably they're really curious about it, and then there's all this myth building around it. So how can we actually even normalize a conversation among boys and girls? In your experience, how can we actually, if there was like a how-to-do book for dummies, how would you author it?
I think the way, we tried in one of our program, not at CREA, but elsewhere. So it's basically talking about what happens when we grow up, So, and then what are the changes that happens, in our body. And I think there are different ways that you have to really include of talking about menstruation. It's just not, giving information, just talking about reproduction and menstruation, then it really gets into silos. So with men and boys, it's really important to tell them that, what happens. You know, what is it all about? It's a bleeding, all right, and then what, you know? And also not just talk about the sad part of menstruation, because we do a lot of it, you know, it pains, you know, girls go through those pain
PMS.
and then lot of bleeding and all of those, and then ultimately sanitary pad, and that's it. So I think we really need to also, you know, be cheerful talking about menstruation, how that is also something, a part of life, you know, growing up and enjoying your life, and then how that is, you know, it's not just women, it also is part of everybody, right? And that's a, you know, a really difficult but not impossible pathway to break, because now, you know, just a small example, when I started talking with my son, who is an adolescent, about menstruation, because in school, I think in previously we heard about in school, they just, Shushma ji told about that chapter has not been done. Fortunately in his school, they did that chapter, and he said, oh mama, I know about it. I said, then all right, let's see what you know about it. And he told me about what I just said, you know what happens, then the sanitary pad, and then he said, you also see in the advertisement in the TV. And I said, all right, that's it. And then he said, yeah, that's it, was been told to me, but I really felt that, you know, he said, and I was really, really surprised to hear, he said that, I just feel that you have been going through such a long time. Did you speak to anybody in your life about it? You know, that I think even boys want to speak about it. It's not that they don't want to, but we just don't want to get into the harder part of it.
You know, just a really funny story came to my mind, and how children can be your best teachers in life. You know, I have a female dog at home, and she got her first periods, and then I had to actually explain what periods was to my daughter. And she got really excited, and she called it puberty power. I mean, so in all my age, I mean, I was, I think, in my 30s then, nobody had ever defined periods, menstruation to me as puberty power. I think she just turned my understanding. I think children have answers that we should be looking for. And if we listen to them, I think we'll get more communication messages than probably we in this room put together can do. But I'll come straight to you, Bharathy. Given your experience with actually working in the community, stakeholder, and some really difficult, you know, when you go into the community, there are so many stands people take, and there are so many social norms, there are so many cultural taboos that you have to break to even begin these conversations. So in this room, we are really looking for solutions, but if we understand the challenges and what they have, you know, how have they made you strategize and think differently?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very complicated question, but I'll be as simple as possible. I think when you work on ground in the field, you need to look at all levels. You just can't look at the district. Like, I'll be going right to the field from the nation to right in a state, in a district, which is the administrative area of work. So we have to look at the leadership in a district, and then we have to look at the schools and the community. So I think still they are very far apart. Like, we have the nation and the states are very far apart, hardly linkages. In the same way, in a district and school, there's a lot of layers that are there between. So I think when you design a program or an intervention, so I'll talk in the category of intervention, we have to look at all these stakeholders, because these stakeholders are the one who will reach the people down there. I mean, you and me cannot go to every single girl in this country. It's not possible. So we have to be inclusive in our approach. We cannot be exclusive. So we have to look at what will appeal. For example, we had a male CEO. CEO is this chief executive officer of a district. In some states, they are called district collectors, DMs, magistrates. So what will appeal to a CEO is where we look at that. And I'm very fortunate, I have male CEOs calling up and saying, can you do menstrual hygiene management programs in our district? Now that's the first breakthrough. It's a male, he wants to work with in the schools and with the girls. So I think that's usually the entry point, because when he does it, he brings the departments together. So this is no department's baby. Till now, no department owns this program. They may say we are doing this, they may say we are doing that, but still, if you ask me today, no department is actually saying MHM is my baby. So no leading department. That means your work increases fourfold because you have to look at convergence of these departments. So who are these departments? Who are the people they are working with? Who are their legs? Who is your person who will deliver? Is the question that I ask, is when I have to reach every girl in my district. Could be 15,000, could be 30,000. In some districts there are 70,000 adolescent girls. If I have to reach that number, who is the person who's going to reach out to her? So that's where the challenge comes, because the capacity to deal with a topic like this is minimalistic. So if you train that cadre well, if you empower that cadre well, cadre means they could be teachers, they could be ICDS supervisor, they could be health personnel who are actually interacting with the community. If you can prepare them well, that's where the final breakthrough comes, because that's, if you empower them, if you equip them well, they will be able to reach out the girls, and that's where the major challenge comes. Because I'll give you a few examples from my training. 70% of the 2,000 cadre that I have personally trained on ground in Maharashtra, 70% of them feel that menstrual blood is impure. Now these are change agents supposedly, and that's how do you break that, is incorporating that then part of your training with them. So that was the first challenge I saw, is that how do you break walls? It was literally like breaking walls, 1 wall, 2 wall, 3 wall, and not much time. The government doesn't like give me a luxury of 3 days to break walls on menstruation, because 3 days people are the frontline cadre is going to sit and listen to me. That's not going to happen. So how do you enhance your training to break those walls as and when you have the opportunity in that time of the day? Could be only 6 hours of training. How do you do it? What are the key pressure points? What is the takeaway that you want them to, go back and give to the girl? I'm not saying this is ideal, so I'm not romanticizing this idea of,
Bharathy, can I jump in quickly and ask you 2 questions?
Yeah.
First one is, given you've been so challenged by different department, nobody owns it, still where have you found the most positive response? So like if you were given these 6 days and you were said, who would you pick to be your ally? 1, or who are those 2 people who you would pick to be your ally? And given that there are so many things that we have to do, which is my handle? Is it possible, given your experience from the field, which is the handle that I need to turn to make things move, even in terms of messaging? I mean, would it be something like, menstrual blood is not impure versus don't put restrictions on her when she is bleeding? What would it be? What are the 3 things you would really want to see change?
Sorry, you can stop me if I go long, because I can talk the whole day on this.
I will, don't worry.
So you're saying at the ground level, you're talking at the administration
At the ground
level,
level.
because there are different handles for different categories.
Can I be greedy and ask you for both quickly?
Oh, God. Okay, so for at the ground level, I think there are few things that we have to incorporate and turn. Is society has double standards. Till then, we do not see that, and how are double standards put in? Because there is one very powerful exercise where people literally cry during, is that what happened to you when you first got menstruation? That compassion and empathy, if it doesn't come, I think that's where it's the emotional connect. I don't feel this is a head program. It is more the emotion. I think for me, the deal breaker was, do I connect with this thing here? If I can empathize with the girl and not talk to her as an adult, because when I was a girl, I was in a bad state. I think the emotional connect to the issue is what we could put in. That's why the teachers did not grumble ke ye extra kaam de diya mujhe dene ke liye aur abhi mujhe पढ़ाना भी है और मुझे ये भी करना है. So that passion, that emotional connect is one. The messages, few messages like impure blood, allowing girls to talk and ask questions. I think our culture doesn't allow girls to ask questions. So once the teachers understand, oh, I have been talking all the time, I have not been allowing girls to ask questions. I think the methodology more than the messaging was the something that broke something in them, is that I need to stand back and give that space to the girl to talk about it. Not force her, because she will not talk in the first 3 sessions, forget about it. But in the 4th session at least, she will start talking about it. So I think the communication has to be extremely interpersonal. It cannot be shouting from the rooftops. I'm not saying it has to be hidden and, in secrecy, but there is a balance, Understanding the timing, okay, to say, oh, we will tell everybody. No, is your community ready to be told to everybody? So I think that's, I'm sorry, I can't put words into it, but this is just an intuitive kind of training. Are these people ready? Not ready? What is that they need to reach out to the girl is just, I assess during the training as well. So it is very much district-wise where people are,
I think, Bharathy, you've given a really wonderful insight that we do need to respect people's context, it's very essential. And many of us in this room are the converted, we've moved from A to B to C to Z, but we can't take people from C and throw them to Z. So I think absolutely that point is well taken, and the kind of messages, and when we talk about messages, I have Nirmala next to me, so it's like the obvious segue. What creative means have you been using at WASH to, handle what seems to be a very sensitive issue? I think the fact that I think that keeps coming back to me is that adolescents are sort of invisible, and adolescent girls are even more invisible in the community, right? It's not, the word adolescent is a very modern sort of, can I say, invention. It wasn't around since history was written. Yeah, it's something that came up with, just after industrialization, that even Western pedagogy really discovered the word adolescent in the 19th century. So given that reality, we very happily use the term, but we still need to really sort of give this population an identity and empower them and give them a voice. In all of that, we're talking about menstruation, and especially about girls. So it needs a lot of, I say, innovation and creativity. So let's hear more from you.
Sonali, you used 2 of the words that are kind of key to what we've done in the past 2-3 weeks. One being invisibility, and the second being adolescence. So I'm just going to go back a little bit. Like WASH United initiated MHD, right? And what happened was, for the past 3 years, a lot of conversation was happening with the sector and within the sector. So we were talking to the converted, and that's what was happening. This year, what we decided very consciously was that this is going to move from a B2B to a B2C campaign. We are going to start talking to young people. And that was a very clear decision in our heads, that everything that we're going to do is going to be talking to those young people. And, over the 3 years, times have changed so much. We had a very, very powerful tool in our hand, which is the digital medium, which gives you enough anonymity to kind of come on and talk about an issue as sensitive as menstruation. And that's the medium that we used this year. And I have to say, when we started off talking about what is it that we want to do, there were a lot of discussions that happened about how do we start talking about menstruation. Do we need to talk to the urban crowd about menstruation at all? Because that's the crowd that we're going to get through digital. How are we going to talk to just girls and not the boys? Can we talk to girls and boys together? These are all questions that we faced. And there was one simple answer, that the only way we can do this is by giving the whole issue a positive spin. We have to give it a positive spin, which is talking about menstruation from the perspective of, like she said, getting that emotion right from the perspective of education. Like, what is it that we do where we connect the two, take away the stigma so that people are not getting offended, but they want to engage in a conversation. And that's where we decided that we're going to start talking about a journey of a woman. Journey of a woman and what she goes through, and what does education mean? Does education only mean going to school? No, right? Like, did all of us learn about menstruation and periods from school alone? No. The first person who kind of teaches us about periods generally in our lives is our mother, who becomes the crucial point. If the mother is enabled, if the mother is educated, if the mother is aware, the daughter's going to have a far better experience of menarche than a mother who's not. And I can give you like a simple example when we had to prove these things to ourselves that what we're doing is worth it. I went to National Institute of Design. It's as elite as it can get in India. One of my friends is doing a film on menstruation, a small documentary. This was 2003. My roommate, every night he would sit and talk about the shoot and talk about what happened. My roommate was awfully quiet, and she's a Delhi girl. She's not a quiet girl. She was awfully quiet. And third, fourth day, she tells me, like when everyone left the room, she tells me, you know what, Nirmala, when I got my periods, my mother told me, तुम्हारे अंदर गंदे ख्याल आते हैं, इसीलिए ये हुआ है. Which means you have dirty thoughts, that's why you have this. Can you imagine? She's a girl from Delhi. She went to a very elite school in Delhi. She's studying in a premier institute. And I'm not talking about something that happened 50 years ago. I'm not that old. And that's what she said. And it just, I didn't know how to react because I'm from Kerala. It's celebrated, Everyone talks about it. I got money when I got my periods. It was good fun. My father's the one who told me, the slangs for periods. So I came from a completely, we were two ends of a continuum. And that's when we realized that conversation is just so important. Dialogue is just so important. We need to talk about it, and we need to find ways of talking about it. And also, menstruation generally is such a lonely process for a woman. She is going through it by herself. There is no one to share it with. Therefore, an enabling environment becomes so important. Without that enabling environment, it's pointless. I can know all about, menstruation. I can have all my facts correct. But if everybody in my family thinks I can't touch the pickle, then what? Do I rebel every month? Seriously, it's not a one-time thing, no? Every month, 5 days, what? I rebel, I'm going to touch the pickle. We have to have, it has to go beyond that. We have to start educating everyone around us. And that's where the campaign, and that's where we realize that, talking to young people, and after 2 weeks, I can tell you that an urban audience needs just as much education as a rural audience. Girls need as much education as boys. No one knows anything. There are just so many people. And I can read out comments, and we're not talking 1 or 2 comments. Aranya's video this morning was on 6.5 million views. There were over 5,000 comments just on her video. I'm not even talking about the other stuff, which was also very, very engaging. Every post of ours had thousands of comments on them. People they were just so enthusiastic about engaging. And what was the best engagement that we got? On stories where we were talking about enabling the people around them. A story about how a mother makes it normal for a daughter. That story had just emotional outpours where people are talking about, this is what happened to me, or this is not what happened to me, or I wish this had happened to me.
So, it's just you all bring so many memories back. I think growing up, I had a bunch of friends, but my best friend was a hot water bottle. Every month, I used to be hugging this hot water bottle. And, the duck back or whatever that company was called. I think most women will remember that. Yeah, but you brought back memories. Sort of another area. I don't know how many of you know about the vagina monologue or have seen it. I think there's so many issues around women that are taboo topics, and one of them is actually the vagina. And it's so difficult to speak about it, talk about it. It's just not said. And I think when Eve Ensler took her play global, and it also came to India, really people had to sit up and think about things that around women that were shrouded in secrecy. There was all this drama around it, but actually this is what we live with every day. And I think it's great that this is something to be spoken about, but I think one thing that really spun this whole thing is humor. And I really want you to, Nirmala, talk about a little bit of humor. Some people say Indians don't have a sense of humor.
I can tell you also.
Can you please?
I absolutely adore Aranya, but her video has gone so viral that it has kind of overshadowed everything else that is happening that we have done. So there's another video that we did with a platform called Array, which is again hugely popular with young people. Yeah. And Array has done a humorous take on how to talk to young boys about periods, and it starts with these young boys talking to each other about a sanitary napkin and saying, "Isme mummy sussu karti hai, ye adult diaper hai," and all these things, and how a mother takes it upon herself, saying that I'm going to teach you a lesson now. And she kind of places pads everywhere, like everywhere the boy goes, there's a sanitary napkin there. And he starts getting horrified, and finally she says, "You need to sit and talk to me about it, because you can't be saying these things, And it's a very funny video, and that's also crossed 1 million views. So people love it, and people absolutely love it. And once again, people are engaging with it, saying, and they're saying, "Thank you so much for letting us know how to talk to boys about it, because this video is now going to make it so much easier." But I tell you, that normalization, once again, it's just, like stories, which is what...
Absolutely.
And I had this cousin, again, back in college days, where he said, one day I was in his house, and I had my... And I knew the word dysmenorrhea then, because my pain was...
When did I hear that?
Yeah, it was so painful, my periods, that I knew the medical term for it. So I was having my dysmenorrhea, and then he came and, he was just gently pestering me. I said, "Don't, I have a stomachache." And he said, "Do you have your periods? Can I give you a back massage?" And he was a boy who was studying in the 8th standard.
Superb.
The most difficult time for being a boy, right?
Yeah.
And he said that, and I was like, "Oh my God." And he was a single boy, he didn't have sisters, so clearly his mother didn't have to have a period talk with him. But she did. And it was just so normal for him when he said, "Chichi, let me give you a back massage." And I thought it was so simple.
I'm just asking this question to the audience. The whole sanitary napkin industry could make everyone believe that, women are sort of menstruating blue blood. Kind of logic of myths and misconceptions, like a 6-year-old boy will think his mother has some exceptionally blue blood at some point in the month. Anyhow, I'll come to you, Lipi, to think about this. You've been running this FAB campaign, I'm Not Down. Let us know more about the impact, because, everybody likes to hear impact, evidence, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
I would just like to continue from where Nirmala left off, and we have been running this campaign, I'm Not Down and Youth Ki Awaaz, for close to 2 months now, and we absolutely agree with everything that you've said, because there are so many misconceptions out there, and you still feel that, but do we really even need to have this conversation? Ye to bahut ho gaya, par ye nahi hua hai bahut. And only with constant intervention, I think, that we can bring change. So I Am Not Down is basically a writing campaign where young people from across the country have been writing onto the Youth Ki Awaaz platform and sharing their stories of dealing with taboos, childhood stories, how they first learned about it or how they didn't learn about it, who, if they attended any workshops or whatever. So we've had so many diverse narratives. And what this has also created is to tell us that actually the stigma is cutting across class, caste, region, gender, education backgrounds, and so many things, everybody having the same story, similar thoughts. But also more than that, I think the biggest impact has been that it has really taken us a big step ahead, especially with young people in India, the internet population, to really challenge the culture of silence that we've grown up with. And that, I think, has been the biggest impact so far, where someone like me grows up knowing that she's not supposed to talk about her periods, or she's not supposed to ask why her aunt has to sit at a separate dining table when everybody is eating together, or how in 9th standard you have to go for a swimming lesson, and because you can't even say you have your period, you have to go and tell your coach that you are medically unfit. When actually you are it's a proof of you being fit. So it has really, you are grown up in this, so many millennials grow up in this culture of silence where you are told ki gandi baat hai, gandi soch hai, ye hai, wo hai. So it has really enabled a network of young change makers to come together and really challenge that culture of silence and say that now we will not keep quiet. And we will break this silence, we will break this stigma. Another thing it has done, I think, is to create a really, good feeling of solidarity, where a young
woman or man from Rajasthan sees that, अच्छा ये तो ओडिशा में भी इसके साथ हुआ था. I was not the only boy who was kept out of the biology lesson where the teacher spoke about menstruation. Or I was not the only young girl who was told that she can't touch the pickle. So it's a conversation that has really, encapsulates the whole country, and it has created a lot of solidarity between young people. We have reached, I think in close to 2 months, we've had a reach of over 15 million over this entire campaign, social media, thousands of comments, shares and reactions, and everybody sharing their stories. So I think it's sort of been more like the breaking of a dam, where someone has to take the first step, and then you see that there is such an outpour of emotion, such an outpour of stories. And I think for us that has been the biggest impact.
I mean, this is just, hearing that this conversation is possible, and I think that's the biggest takeaway probably from this, what can we do is actually make sure we keep having conversation. One conversation is not enough, obviously. It has to be numerous conversations, because each of us take a lot of time to undo what has been done for so long. So in all of this, if you remember, any of the most poignant sort of anecdotes that you can share with us that make you really appreciate the distance people have to walk to break a taboo? It's not easy.
So we've had a lot of stories. I think one story that has really resonated the most is also about the death of a young woman in Assam who was who died because she had a stomach parasite because she was using unhygienic cloth during her period. This is an absolutely underreported story. You are not going to find it on any primetime channel. You're not going to find it anywhere in mainstream news being discussed. But many young people wrote about this on Youth Ki Awaaz, and they chose to give this narrative importance, where it reached over 2 lakh people in a matter of a week in terms of readership. And it really made us see how much people are breaking sort of the top-down hierarchy of what's important and what's not in the news and really taking it ahead. I think another example was about how this mother taught her son, again through a humorous way, that it's okay to speak with your female friends in the classroom about whether you have your period or not. And we also had this one comment where this mother said that she sent a hot water bottle with her son to his school, so that he could, keep it in the classroom and say, whoever needs this.
Oh, that's empathy, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Again, another incident where these young women from Ahmedabad wrote about how these other women came to their classroom and taught them about periods through really cool science experiments. So this horror of a physics class where everybody was and biology class where everybody was not, keen to engage, actually became this really fun session on breaking the stigma and breaking the taboo. So we've seen like a range of stories coming in.
No, and thanks Lipi for sharing this, because I think it's really important to understand that, it's because of the taboo what women and girls are facing because of the unhygienic aspect, and I think that is something we will continuously discuss. And the fact that, sometimes it's a costed pad, so the family doesn't want to buy it because it's a recurring cost. So let's not even begin putting a price to it. So I think these are realities that we need to deal with, and they need to surface very strongly. I think now I'll move to Urmila. I think just to have the concept of a lab, a tent which you put out to really sort of have this really extremely innovative way of talking about menstrual hygiene and its management. So I'd love for you to share with everybody what inspired this idea and what kind of reception is it getting from your audience?
So WSSC, that's Water Supply and Sanitation Collaborative Council. It's a multi-stakeholder international organization, and we began work on MHM way back in 2012. We were still after the AC Nielsen study commissioned by the government of India, when nobody was talking about menstruation. We did not know the scale and the magnitude and the nature of the problem. That is when we started working with the government of India to know what are the issues. So we traveled 60 days across 6 states of India, and we met, trained, facilitated, interacted with 18,000 girls and women, and we found that the need of the Indian women is a private space for them to converse and ask their questions regarding not only menstruation but about things that matter to them. So that private space we found was the number one need, the thirst, the hunger for information was there. Today, at today's context, after so many years, we may say that Google is there, and with digital empowerment, we have access to information. But when you Google something, it's not necessary that you have landed on the right page and the right information. So Google and digital empowerment doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to get accurate information, which is going to make you give access to information which is fruitful for you. So digital empowerment is a different thing. Which is the space where a woman is going to go to, ask the questions, and get accurate information. And we came up with this concept of actually, erecting a tent. Nowhere, it was in a village, in a mela, or Swachhta Mela, or a conference like this, or you have a corporate event, and you want people to know, ask questions. We erected this tent, and we call it the MHM Lab, where we have a three-pronged approach of education. The first thing we do is we dispel the myths and stigma by visually instructing them, facilitating understanding on what happens inside your body when you're menstruating. This is the scientific basis of menstruation. It's not your uterus getting cleaned or washed every month, no. There is a uterine wall which is breaking down, which was preparing for the fertilization to occur, for the baby to occur. The function of the uterine wall is to give nutrition to the baby. If there is no intercourse, if there is no fertilization happening, your body knows that there is no requirement for that uterine wall, and it is shedding that uterine wall along with the eggs. What that information and the pictorial representation does is that you are convinced at a personal level that it's not any washing happening. It's a natural biological phenomenon which is related to the power of a woman to give birth when she's ready. And this actually sets her free. The basic scientific knowledge gives her negotiation skills with people who are causing problem for her, who are subjugating her, people she wants to convince. This is the basis. We use this. So in the laboratory, we start with this, the biological explanation of what menstruation is. This breaks stigma at every level. WSSC also believes in gender equality. We don't do menstrual hygiene management trainings or conversations in isolation. When we talk about a woman, we make sure we talk about the man. When we talk about the changes in a girl's body, when puberty, we use this tool, different stages in your body as you grow up, and what are the changes, anatomical, physiological changes. We make sure that it is balanced with a representation of what happens in a male's body also. This is very important because many girls in the MHM lab tells us, why only us? Why this burden only on us? The men are flying, and every month we are facing this. When the girls are told that boys also have something equivalent, it's not menstruation, but it's seminarche, the first wet dream, and they have ejaculations which are beyond their control. When they have that seminarche, and then whenever they have this, girls become aware that they are not the only ones who have these physiological changes. This gives them accurate information that it's not a burden, it's manageable. These two tools are used inside the tent for them to have a balanced view on menstruation on the basis of science, so that they can negotiate for their own options. Inside the lab, we also display the entire sanitary materials which are available in the market. WSSC has never positioned sanitary pad over cloth because it's insane to be talking to a woman who is below poverty line and has only one sari and washes a sari in phases because she doesn't have another to cover her back. There is a story which was on media. Half sari gets washed before, when it is dried, the other gets washed. How do you talk to that woman about a sanitary pad? That is not the stance that we have taken. What we do is we teach them how to use the cloth, how to dry the cloth, how to store it, when to throw it. Because if you don't throw it in the right time, if you exchange cloth among yourselves, it leads to infection. So we give information on the cloth first, because from our experience we found the poor people also use cloth, even the ones who afford, like me. Sometimes if your sanitary pad runs out, I don't mind using a piece of cloth. So you need to know how to use your cloth and wash it. And then we introduce the sanitary pads, the different types of sanitary pads. We introduce the tampons, we introduce the silicone cup. Now we introduce the reusable cloth pad as well. So we use the entire thing. We teach them what are the pros and cons of each product, what are the costs, and we start conversation on that without positioning one product over another. The last part that we do inside the lab is we teach them how to dispose their used sanitary material, the responsive management of your own used sanitary material, and your role in keeping the environment safe, clean. So we teach them simple things. We don't talk about incineration in the lab. We do that in TOT, or we talk about the compost pit or the burial. But at the lab, at individual level, we talk about if you have a sanitary pad, don't put it inside the flush. It's going to clog the entire city sewage. That's the biggest problem that BBMP has in Karnataka. They have a problem that how do we clear the city sewage, because the major barrier is the sanitary pad there. So what we do is we teach them that if you don't have a closed dustbin in the restroom that you're using in college, at least you can carry used old newspaper, wrap it in that, and keep it in your school bag or college bag, and the next time you will see a closed bin, you dispose it there. These small tips of responsive management of your used sanitary material is what happens in the MHM lab, in the tent. We serve tea and biscuits, because in India, chai means you're extending your hand for friendship, and something beautiful happens. We have this culture that if you call someone for chai, it means you're accepting them as a friend, as somebody you trust in. So when you serve tea in the MHM lab, all women, irrespective of their age or the economic level, become one. You become friends. And then you start the conversation. You give these 3 prongs of scientific and biological foundation of your menstruation, how to manage it and the sanitary products, and how to dispose it. That is the session that we do. It takes 2 hours approximately to run an MHM lab to achieve all this. After that, we make a bracelet. I hope all of you got it.
I did.
The first stall is our this thing. We are sending you these bracelets. These are tools for internalizing people on the cycle and breaking the silence and not having this shame. So we give them yellow beads in one basket. We give red beads in one basket. We give them a thread and a needle. Everyone sits and calculates. There are 28 beads in this particular bracelet. If you have periods for 6 days, then your 6 red beads will be the days that you have periods. Then you subtract the 28 days out of the days you have periods, and those are the number of yellow beads you have. So when the person sits there and strings it and has to mentally think about, oh no, red 2, then how many days left? These many days. Give me yellow beads, I need these many beads. There is an internalization which occurs. You come to know that this is very important. And then we ask them to wear it and keep on wearing it. And when you wear this, you are not ashamed of having periods. You know how many days you have periods. You have broken that stigma of letting your neighbor or your friend know that you bleed for 6 days. In fact, if somebody taps on your shoulder and I said, very, very interesting bracelet because it doesn't match your clothes, then it gives you an opportunity to start.
Urmila, I'll jump in here. I think this is really a very interesting device. Do women really publicly wear them?
Yes.
They do.
Yes.
And it's like whoever go through your tent,
Yes.
you have seen them wear them publicly.
Yes.
Why I'm asking you this question is, one is the technical aspect of giving information, right? The other is that, as even, Nirmala was saying, women are educated. They know about, the uterus wall forming and that it's not impure, there's nothing linked with dirty thoughts or whatever. But this whole matter of, the cultural aspect, just this is how we've been told.
Yes.
They just dissociate
Yes.
the laboratory bit
Yes.
with the faith bit.
Yes.
So how, in your experience, can you bridge this, like this pickle piece? I've never really in my head understood it. I mean, I just cannot understand this. We produce the maximum amount of, scientists, people, technology expert, and we are one country that believes pickle will get bad if a menstruating girl or woman touches it. It just doesn't add up. But how do you, and this is probably a question for everyone, how do we just bridge this? I mean, it baffles me. Like, I've worked in communications forever. I've done so much of work around, women's rights and taboo topics, violence. It just baffles me that something so unscientific and unacceptable becomes something we really will fight behind. And they'll just say, this is a matter of tradition. This is a matter of what we believed in. And then everything is thrown out of the window.
Right.
So maybe you can go at it first, and then if it's open to others to sort of jump in.
So the basis of our MHM work rests on not just accurate information on science, basis on science, but we take this as a human right violation. And we approach it as a gender inequality that happens in the parameters of your home. So if there is stigma and the girl doesn't have access to resources, doesn't have access to discussion with parents, it's a human right violation. Because that is the time when she requires those amenities of a family, dignity. A girl who has periods and you are treated, somebody as an untouchable for 5 days, and then for the 25 days you want her to be an empowered person, doesn't match. Nobody wants to be treated for 5 days like in Nepal. WSSCC, we just had a TOT in Nepal where the government functionaries from Nepal and Pakistan assembled for the TOT, and the discussion was, you cannot push your girls where the cattle are there for 5 days, the Chopadi system, and then you call back your girls and worship them. There is an indiscrepancy, and there is a situation there where it doesn't make sense. So that is how we approach, and we talk about it as a human rights issue. We talk about gender inequality. The gender inequality has to be addressed for people to get access to resources, facilities, and support system.
Thank you. So anybody would like to comment on this as well? Please,
with the rural girls and the coming to the last bit of the mile that we're talking about, is I think the power of dialogue, sitting and talking about it. Maybe not everybody is ready to do that, but whoever is ready, because it will then catch on later on. So what we do is we bring these FAQs, these things to the training. We say, why is this like that? Why is this like that? So we turn around from the behavior to the value system. So we have a kind of a link chain to, okay, if I don't touch somebody, means I'm impure. But where is the thought coming from? So you have to sit down and break it. Just saying, okay, no, now you go, you can touch the pickle, nothing is going to happen to it. That doesn't break behavior. That doesn't change behavior. My value system, my thinking pattern, if that changes, automatically the behavior changes. So I think this link is spoken about. The logic of it is spoken of, understood, and only then, and this happens only with dialogue. It's hard work, it's not easy. Yes. It is over a period of time. So if we work with the girls, you can't go to the girl once and talk to her about menstruation and MHM and then that's over. It's a continuous process of dialogue, not just with the girl, but with the mothers. So are the mothers willing to come and dialogue? So that's another one. With the SMC, which is the School Management Committee, is the HM ready to talk? Is my Gram Sevak ready to talk? Is my Gram Panchayat? So who are your influencers? Who will be your ambassador? I think all that together, I think will create that social norm in the village. Now I'm talking about in the village where the much taboo topic of not speaking about it, I'm not saying it's going to happen in one intervention, so to say, like in 6 months we had 6 sessions and it's like what next? Who is the other influencer? How will the government be involved? Is there any NGO that can work also? How will sustainability take place? We did this much work. What will happen next year? Where are the boys? Who will speak to the boys? So I think it's very complicated. It's not as easy. It's multi-layered. And I think for me, what I have seen the breakthrough is through dialogue. It's through communication. It's through interpersonal communication. I believe in mass medias, but for me, what I have seen is, let's face it now, let's talk about it. What is the problem? Let's discuss it. And it all relates to the gender perspective. You know, you have to talk about gender. You can't say I'm talking about menstruation
Without talking about
about
gender. So I'm going to jump to Madhumita. I think she's interested on this a lot.
I think, you know, one social norm is very difficult piece, and then most of the time we say that we are going to challenge it. You know, I feel that challenging is another, you know, big hard rock. Instead, you just find an alternative to make sure that the alternative is taking place within your social norm system, right? I'm going to talk about sports. You know, sports is a very interesting mechanism to actually break those lot of social norm. And when you enter, please do not enter with menstrual hygiene in your mind, so that, you know, by the time you start your intervention, you say, all right, our intervention is all about menstrual hygiene. So you start with sports, and through sports, you know, there is one big thing that most of the girls, you know, have heard from many people is that, you know, during your menstruation, don't run, don't take too much of hard work because you are going to bleed more or you'll have stomach pain, right? I think sports is a very nice way to break that. And that's so easily done without bringing on your table that, all right, because you're menstruating and this is going to happen. You know, you keep on girls playing and then tell them that you have to play every day, you know, and then tell them that you know, in a process, they will also understand that it's nothing, you know, weird to play during menstruation than when I'm not menstruating. I think that's really important. And I know pickle, and the other piece is religious place. You know, that's so,
Well,
so
did we forget that?
You know, I think most of the data still shows pickle thing has gone down, but religion piece has not at all going down. I really have no answer to it because we tried in couple of experiment about religion, and challenging religion is a big.
Okay, come here.
We just did a vox pop in Bangalore where this religion piece was picked up, and it's amazing how everyone said that they do not enter religious places. But having said that, you know, like one of the things that we are seeing through the conversations that are happening digitally is, and this is not something that we planned, this is something that's come to notice, is that a lot of this challenging is happening between young people. They are challenging each other rather than a top to bottom where we talk to them. What is happening is one person suggests that this is a ridiculous, so these are actual conversations. Someone says this is a ridiculous conversation, there are far more important things in this country. We don't need to talk about periods, this is unnecessary and this is feminist. Which is of course, like, you know, you've nailed it, right? You've said everything now there's nothing worse than that. Now there are responses that are coming to it which are from young men and women, and it's amazing to see how they challenge it, and then they have a conversation. Sometimes it goes into zones that you don't want to go into, but there are times where it's very productive. And then when a piece like Aranya's comes, because a lot of young people look up to her, when a piece like that comes, a lot of people feel solace there. Because a lot of people have come back and said, okay, all these conversations, and there are people who've been engaging with us continuously. I remember names of those people now. And they say that, you know, all this conversation that you've been having, this is a great culmination to it. Because she's giving us the solution. She's telling us that it can be done like this, you know. And this whole thing of to say that I'm leading without violence, it's so beautiful. It gives me the power. Now I can go back and tell people, I can say something. So I think that conversation, that's just so powerful because it's coming from their peers, you know, and they're not challenging it.
So, you know, we'll just have one more question for the panel and then we'll open it up to the house, and I've already seen someone really excited. So we're going to have about 15-20 minutes for the house, and this is just one question to them from my side, and then it'll be open house. It's really exciting. I've never attended a menstrual hygiene management day ever in my life, even as an activist. This is my first one, yeah? So I'm just curious from you guys, how would you leverage? Suddenly there's so much noise and conversation around this. This is your moment, yeah? So what's going to be that one big thing that you're going to do, because now everybody's listening to you? And
That's dangerous.
yeah, anyone wants to go first? maybe 1,000 labs out there. What do you want to change and break all taboos?
Yes, I think I would like to have a lab at every occasion which is happening, whether it is in Swachhta Mela, whether it's in a conference pan-India. And in those labs, I would want men also to be, part of those labs, because these labs have sessions for men outside the lab, because the inside part is only for the women. So I think men have to be engaged, and we found that men, it is an assumption that they don't want to talk about this. It's just that they're waiting for a cue, for someone to tell them that they have a role to play. They can be a part of the support mechanism. That cue has to be given to them. Men have to feel there is a role they have to play, and we have to communicate that we want them to take this up. When that communication is done, I think a lot of good leadership will come from there, and then the possibilities are endless.
So I think in the coming few months, just to begin with, menstruation is one of Youth Ki Awaaz's prime topics. And on a very frequently visited website where young people go, you see politics, society, art and culture, movies. But as one of the main categories, you never see menstruation or period stigma, or something like that. So we have decided internally to make this a really prime agenda for us over the next few years, and to really front it across the website, to continue our campaign, to get more people to talk, and to just continue from what Nirmala was saying. The approach from top down has now become peer to peer. What we want to do is that now we also want to make it bottom up. कि अब हम हमारे parents और grandparents
There's no pun intended there.
So you Nirmala now. So letting the thought flow from there.
So what I would say is we have a platform now.
Yeah.
And sitting here, I want to make that platform open to everyone. We're a 6-people organization. There's only so much we can do.
I didn't know that.
We can't do more. I mean, we really need help. We need all of you to come and use that platform.
Yeah.
It's an open platform. We don't want to own anything there. So please, all of us, come, let's own it. There are just so many young people itching to talk there, and who are talking. And digital, the one thing that's prime is the momentum. We have it right now. Let's not let it go. Let's continue. Let's do stuff together.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I'm absolutely saying this here, sitting here, and let's use it. Let's not lose it.
Madhumita, your moment.
I see a lot of allies here and a lot of people talking about what we really want to do. And I would say that let's talk about sexuality and be menstruation part of it, not the end of it, and to make sure that just anybody who comes with a solution just doesn't talk about sanitary pad, and that's the solution for girls.
So I'll just add my wish list to it. Next time I want a guy on the panel as well. So whoever manages this, that's my wish list. So I want someone sitting here, a guy, talking about breaking taboos along with these fabulous women. And now I'll open it out to the house.
Can I have my wish also?
Oh, sorry, I missed you. So sorry. Sorry, one more moment.
So yesterday, for the first time in Maharashtra, we had the MHM Day, first ever in Maharashtra, and it was not initiated by me, thank you, and nor by UNICEF, but it was supported, and it came from the Department of Women and Child, which is very unusual because the first partner is Water and Sanitation Department, but this wish came from the ICDS especially, and they celebrated at the state level, and ironically, now there are districts who came up and said, we want to do this intervention with us, please come to our district and let's do it together. So I think my wish obviously has come to pass before I could wish it. So we have more stakeholders on board, more departments, and I just want to correct something that I said, this one is no one's baby. It's why, though SBM has money allocation for MHM, but still the leadership is not being seen. It's everybody has bits and pieces of MHM in their programs, but the leadership is yet to be seen. So my wish is there will be, in Maharashtra, we'll see more leadership on this, and same for the nation, I guess.
Thank you, and yes, ma'am. Yes.
My name is Nishita Chakrabarty with Sanitation Impact Solutions. I guess my my suggestion and comment is for the panelists as well as the 80+% of men in the room who agree that menstrual hygiene management is required, and touching upon the issue of religion, right, where the norms originate. And I'm, for example, a Hindu Brahmin girl, and I had my period last week, and I did not go to the mandir for 3 days. And now I'm wondering, through this dialogue, can that change? Or my Muslim friend who has Ramzan, has to not, or gets to eat on those dirty or unclean days. Can this change, and can we move our dialogue from the youth and the community in rural communities to actually the stakeholders, to urban people like us and the imams or the priests? Can it be originated there? Does a woman have to be pelted in the village then for us to realize in social media, okay, we need to do something about menstruation? So this is just a thought and suggestion that we need to engage faith-based organizations in this dialogue to change the norm and desensitize it. Maybe in my next period, I will go to the mandir.
More power to you. Yes. So the gentleman at the back,
Hi. Thank you so much for the engaging discussion. But if you could just elaborate on one of the other channels to kind of run this campaign, which is the influencer bit. Just like we saw with Amitabh Bachchan and polio, how it became a big thing, and we were actually able to win that battle. So if the panelists could elaborate on the role of influencers in this whole campaign, because we work primarily very closely with influencers at Global Citizen India, and we'd love to know if you think that that's a good strategy as far as this campaign is concerned.
So thank you. We'll take 1 or 2 questions and then ask the panel to respond. Yes, Mehta.
Sonali, this is completely prompted by you. So if everybody is mocking me, you are to blame. All right, with that disclaimer.
I don't even know what you're going to say.
With that disclaimer. So I'm going to share a wish and a dream. I wish for the day when every school during assembly is going to actually have the recitation or the singing of a menstrual anthem. Ooh. And I would say Anya's piece could be a piece that could be considered as a menstrual anthem to be sung at every school at least.
Oh, awesome. Awesome.
That's a great thought.
Yes, ma'am.
We'll create language versions of that for sure, if that's to happen.
I'm Swati Bedekar. I work in
Well, I'll take the blame for that.
And what all of you have been talking, we work essentially with rural women who never get to go to school at times. And your suggestion is wonderful. What you did is exactly, we need to really have boys and girls together, and which we have been doing. That when we do our awareness programs, we insist that let the boys be there sitting in the class. And this one point we need to bring their attention to, that all the other body systems, like, they work for us independently, is the only reproductive system which is half in a man's body and half in a woman's. So you both have to know how your systems work. And then boys really become sensitive or are sensitized towards the issue. Secondly, you spoke about anthem, and that's what we do. Because there is no way when you do posters and display them, because no one can really read in the villages still. So we create songs, popularize them by singing them in their women's otla parties or whatever. And the latest song which we just released yesterday, and fortunately eminent singers also are willing to sing these songs, is Mahavari ke dar se maine breakup kar liya.
That's awesome. Humor, music, entertainment,
yes.
and everything. Superb.
Absolutely. And let me come to the religion point, because it is very important. See, in a village, generally, either a temple, gurudwara, or a mosque only have a neat, clean space. So we gather women there. They all come willingly, and we talk about menstruation. Now, it is my last 4 to 5 years experience that when we talk on this subject to women in a religious place, and again go to them, is decided for the first time, because Garba is a big thing in Gujarat. And just after the Aarti at midnight, I would talk to them on menstrual hygiene. and then go again on the 10th day just to show that I'm quite all right, and so will you be. So this is one aspect. We also need to create different stories. If we have 2 minutes, I would like to share one.
Okay, please.
Okay.
And then
because I was in Jammu.
I just check how much more time do we have? We have 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 5 minutes.
I'll take 1 minute or half a minute probably. I was in a Jammu in one such workshop where mothers and daughters, and it was a girls' school. So one of the lady, she said, no, this is all connected to religion, and brought a priest and then said, Parvati ji, it was a Hindu village probably. I mean, I'm not pointing to one particular religion or anything. Parvati ji took the uterus from the Shankar. So we have no choice, we have to suffer. And the priest was also insisting. I said, no, Parvati was an intelligent woman. You are just telling half part of the story. The rest half I will tell. I also happen to be Hindu Brahmin, so I just said I have a right to tell this. So please listen to me. Parvati ji had a deal with Shankar. Shankar ji, sorry. That I will take the uterus from you because women do everything better than men. With due respect to all the men present here. But I will use it only when I see the need to use the uterus. And of course, then there was a lot of row and no, how can you say this, prove this? Well, our mythology comes handy at times. I just said, okay, Parvati ji gave birth to Kartikeya. For some reason, he had to fight with some demon. But when she wanted a child to play with, she created it out of the mitti. And did not use her uterus really. See, because these are the occasions you have to use with women, rural women who are... Context. Yeah, actually. Yeah.
So thank you so much. I mean, this is a fabulous point. How do we use mythology, etc., to our advantage? Because interestingly, it's such a minefield of fabulous possibilities. So thanks for pointing that out. I'll just take 2 more questions and then we'll just come back to the panel. Comments, questions, try and please keep it short because we only have 5 minutes left. So any more? Yes, please.
So I went to an all-girls school and I remember...
Introduce yourself.
Shivani Swami. I work with Living God and Ashok on the Safkins project. I remember I went to an all-girls school in Bombay, and the day we were learning about the reproductive system, my teacher stood there and she said, every girl in this room will keep saying the word vagina till you can say it without laughing. Then she said, now each girl will say the word penis without laughing. And every single one of us was just giggling. But at the end of the day, she took that one step to at least try and sensitize us towards these issues, and just the fact that it's not, the end of the day, every girl has a vagina, or, well, as the situation may be, that these are facts of life and you shouldn't be embarrassed about them. But that's something that we were taught, and as the lady mentioned before, it was a chapter that someone skipped in school. So what is the role we can actually get the government to play, the education department to play, to ensure that there's some sort of education or some sort of dialogue in the schools? Because at the end of the day, as you all mentioned, something on social media doesn't necessarily have to be true. So if I'm relying on Google for my information, someone on Google can say, no, you can't enter the temple because that's the way it has to be. And at the same time, maybe my mother will turn around and tell me that, no, you're dirty during these days. So education is something you can kind of standardize. So what is the role the education department or the government should play?
So thank you, and I'll just request the panelists to be really brief, 1 minute each for your closing remark in response to the audience, and then we'll end the panel. So maybe Bharathy would like to go first.
You want me to respond to that as well?
You can pick any question you like, if you feel it needs a response, or you want to say something that could be completely different, but it's your last minute.
I mean, I'll just go back and say to what I have been saying is that we can advocate for the curriculum, to be part of the curriculum, but let's not keep dreaming because we need to do something now. That can come later. So I think capacity building of teachers as trainers who can do this on a regular basis, use interesting terminology, games, interesting ways, folk music, all that, with the girls, with the boys as well. So, we need to know where to hit at what time. So I think that will really change the landscape, because you'll have more stakeholders in the process rather than we going to everybody and doing it. So I think just towards the end, we do have a guideline in Maharashtra on how the different departments can work on this issue at the ground level and the district level. So I think the strategy is there. We just have to empower, equip, and then go. We need to be more inclusive rather than a few people doing it. So I think that's where I have seen change in the last 2 years. The landscape has changed majorly. Things won't happen in 1 year. We'll have to give time. With HIV/AIDS, we gave 20 years, 30 years for things to change. We can't be impatient with MHM. We have to give time. The government officials also have to be sensitized and look at it as not as a women's issue, but everybody's issue. So I think it'll take time, but I think the change has begun to happen at the ground level. And let's take it on.
I think just 2 quick things as far as Sir's question about the role of influencers is concerned. I think influencers can play a huge role in normalizing the conversation, but there's a slight line that also needs to be drawn, because more young people will connect to influencers who are not just brand ambassadors of a product or an issue, but who really feel about it themselves. So if an Amir Khan does a Satyamev Jayate episode on menstruation, does Amir Khan himself, beyond the show and beyond Star Plus, also care about this? If Pariniti Chopra, as the ambassador of Whisper, is going for various events across the country in her own videos or social media presence, or the things that she is writing, or whatever any celebrities or anybody who's an influencer is writing, how much can I as a young person or as just anybody relate to that, to the influencer as something that I can really take forward with me beyond them just being advocates of a particular brand or an issue? And the second thing is, of course, apart from what ma'am has already spoken about, teacher training workshops in schools and so on, thousands of schools in India and students are participating and taking the Swachh Bharat mission ahead. So how can the government also bring in sanitation and menstrual hygiene as part of all of those Swachh Bharat drives and activities? And students can work on that as part of that, because Swachh Bharat is definitely not just about sweeping your school surroundings and your roads. So how can the government incorporate menstrual hygiene as well there?
So I'm going to take again the influencer question first. So while influencers is something that you love, and it's great PR in that sense, and you have a wide reach, I think we have to also start now redefining what we mean by influencers. What Amitabh Bachchan did for polio happened because the times were such that mass media was television, and that was the primary media. I think with these changing times, what we're also seeing is collaborations and partnerships. Those are becoming just as important as influencers. While it was very good that Akshay Kumar tweeted about the video, and it's been extremely helpful. The media has picked it up. But apart from that, what has been very, very crucial is partnerships like youth platforms, like Terribly Tiny Tales. For us, partnering with Terribly Tiny Tales was fantastic, because there is so much response that's come from there. Such wealthy response that has come from there. Array, again a platform. So I feel that we need to also start redefining our influencers now. It doesn't have to be just celebrities, but there are multiple influencers possible, and we have one sitting in the room with us right now.
That's really cool. Yeah, I completely agree. I think now young people should be our spokesperson, and then we would love to have celebrities to tweet them or to speak on their voice, right? Because we don't want them to talk and then as young people we speak later on. So yeah, she is one of them, and we have to create more. She will definitely influence many more young people to be celebrity for taking up this issue. About how we can take it up, I would say that let's make it people's movement. We just think about government will do this and then they will take a mandate. Let's take it in our own hand. Let's make it our own movement, and we will do it, because I don't think so just school is going to be enough for talking about MHM, because then it will be only reproduction MHM, or this many days you will bleed or something. I think there has to be different channel talking about menstruation in different ways.
I think for me, an influencer role does not have to be assigned to somebody. I think we've had enough of that. Each one of us has a unique context. If I didn't have a sanitary pad, that was because the army canteen did not bring sanitary pads. So if you didn't have a particular solution because of your context, and you use a particular medium to communicate that to the larger audience, I think the number of influencers and contexts which are mapped on the global map will be huge. It will be fluid. It will not be isolated stories. I think influencer is a role each one of us in this room has to multiply. Take the role that you have, make an effort, deliberate effort, that these numbers increase. Instill that awareness and discernment in a person that you can influence your peer. Your peer can influence other people. We have so many other mediums. I see it that way as your personal call to action from this moment onwards. The second thing I see is when we talk about education and menstruation, it's not easy. I remember 5 years back, I met a school teacher in Sangod in Rajasthan who said that the day he took classes of reproduction, the entire village came with lathi to his house. And they wanted to ask him, how are you misleading our girls and boys? Yeah. And during that time, he was the only teacher who went to Jaipur for a training where he was taught the importance of having that class. But when he came back, the school principal did not back up the security which is supposed to be extended to the teacher who took that initiative and personal risk to give that dissemination. So what happened is that person, I think he was physically assaulted, not seriously, but the humiliation was there, and he did not have the personal conviction that there is a benefit in taking that class. I think there should be a policy and a guideline which goes beyond curriculum. It should go to giving security, support, and understanding to those ambassadors in our teaching fraternity who take that extra step to take that class. I also think personally that class 10 and 9 is way too late for you to have a class on your adolescent changes. It cannot be a sudden drop that you suddenly show the penis and the vagina and you talk about that. No, it has to be a story which starts from the beginning. And it has to have a connection. The dots have to connect to a particular phase where the nation and the intelligentsia decide that that is the right time for you to actually call it the penis or the vagina. But in class 1, you have to be taught that all the girls and boys are alike. You have all the organs alike except for the reproductive organ. In the next class, the story has to have a wider definition. It has to be a fluid story, not in bits and pieces and jerks. It won't happen that way.
So I think we have to conclude this session. It's been absolutely fabulous. I just want to leave you with 2 thoughts. I think in every culture and language, we have words for penis and vagina which young people use. Yeah, it's not new. It's just in the structured conversation that we keep these words out. So that leaves me with a thought that I actually want to propose. That what if we say to the world that this is actually normal? Because you think otherwise doesn't make it not normal. Because a norm doesn't need to be normalized. It is already normal. So I think the only message I would say is that in our whole challenging the religious bit, the taboo bit, because we say this is not normal, and we then put ourselves into a straitjacket of how we communicate. So let's say it's already normal, and if you don't think like that, you are the outlier, not us. I think that's how we probably should think about this. And I really want to thank Urmila, Madhumita, Nirmala, Lipi, and Bharathy. And I really credit myself, I remembered everybody's name without faltering. So thank you so much. It was really personally also really energizing and learning session for me. Thank you everybody for your patient listening. And I think we are ready for lunch, and I'm pushing back to the MC.